Okay. And then what I'll do is share my screen. We have a presentation, and then we can do some introductions. Okay. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, looks good, Bob.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, thanks to the Federation, and by way of introduction, my name's Bob Cassis. I'm the policy director for the agency, and we're really happy just to give a brief overview of some new regulations that are coming into effect here in January. Um, really wanted to say thanks to Mike for allowing us to do this, and what I'll do is maybe what I'll do to start off is just have the other fish and boat staff introduce themselves, and we can go from there. So Dave, and I'll start with Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And good evening, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity. Really looking forward to today's presentation and the discussion to follow. So my name is Dave Nyer. I'm the Chief of Division of Fisheries Management.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Nowinski. I'm the Chief of the Division of Fish Production Services within the Bureau of Hatcheries. And one of the units I oversee is the Fish Health Unit.
Good evening. My name is Koji Yamashita, Fish Health Unit Leader for the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, and I'm going to be covering the agency's fish health inspection protocol tonight.
Good evening.
Hey, guys. Oh, go ahead.
I'm Brian McHale. I'm the Cooperative Nursery Unit Leader. Go ahead, Tim.
And hi, guys. I'm Tim Schaefer, Executive Director of the Fish and Boat Commission. And want to thank Mike and the Federation for all your ongoing support and partnership this year and every year and over the years. And I think you'll be, if I've been involved in a number of these meetings that we've done over the last couple months with our cooperative nursery. Some of you may have been in them, but really the goal tonight is to mainly dispel any maybe notions of what this isn't. I think we landed at a really good place that's going to be, frankly, easier for clubs than what they've done in the past, and help us to protect the resource. So I think we wound up with a really good product here, and glad our staff's going to be able to share it with you tonight.
Thanks, Tim. And Mike, I'll defer to you if you have any comments before we get started.
Yeah, Bob, I appreciate it. And Bob, both you, Tim, the rest of your team, we can't thank you guys enough for your partnership. The fact that you guys are giving this opportunity this evening, we appreciate it. Tim, I know you've attended almost every one of our quarterly meetings that we've had since I've been on board, and I can't thank you enough. Run into you on the hill all the time. And this is a great partnership that you guys have with us, and we appreciate this opportunity this evening. So, as we mentioned, earlier in the day when I was talking to Bob and Tim, we reached out to all of our members and gave them the opportunity to participate tonight. So, for those that aren't able to be on the call this evening, I have seen a couple of the faces of folks that have joined from the Federation. We'll have a chance hopefully to share the tape version of this. And again, on behalf of the Federation, we appreciate the partnership with the Fish and Boat Commission. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And we'll go ahead and get started. And for the fish and boat staff that are helping me present tonight, I'll be running the slides. So once it gets to your portion, you can just indicate next slide.
Hey, Bob, do you want to wait till after every individual's done with your presentation for questions, or at the very end, or how do you want to do that from a administrative perspective?
You know what? That's a good question. Maybe we'll just wait till the end. We'll get through everything. I don't anticipate it taking too long, and we'll go from there if that works for you.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. So here's the agenda for tonight. Again, we already did a little bit of the introductions, but what I'm going to end up doing is an overview of the new chapter of our regulations, again known as Chapter 71A. Then I'll turn it over to Dave, who's going to go over the notice of stocking, which is going to be new moving forward. Koja will talk a little bit about fish health. I will wrap things up with watercraft inspection requirements that are also new, and then we'll just take questions and any comments and see how the conversation goes from there. Okay. So again, just the spellings of the names listed there for the presenters for tonight for Fish and Boat. And this is really just some background here, but when we refer to chapters 71A and 71 and 73, it all stems from our regulations that are in the Pennsylvania Code, specifically Title 58. Again, that's where all the agency's regulations are housed. And within the code are two chapters that have been there since the 80s, chapters 71 and 73, and really what they addressed were the introduction of fish into Commonwealth waters, as well as the transportation of fish into the Commonwealth. And now those are the broad topics that both cover, but there was also other things in those chapters. It was sort of a grab bag of things, whether it was propagation or closed system topics. We had a list of prohibited species that we don't want in the Commonwealth, etc. So, really there was a discussion within the agency that, good comprehensive rewrite was needed to not only make it more clear, but to really address the current conservation issues that the agency is trying to tackle here into the future. So again, that's really the impetus for why it happened and why now. And you're probably wondering, well, why, right? Well, again, it's really, aimed at preventing the spread of aquatic invasive species as well as disease vectors. We've seen a few examples, which I'll go into, of invasive species and disease vectors that get into waters of the Commonwealth, and then it's up to our agency, because we have jurisdiction again over fish, over amphibians, reptiles, etc., to try and tackle that. So aquatic invasive species are really at the top there, but it's also to make sure that we're sustaining healthy fisheries, and we want to make sure that as an agency we're managing healthy fisheries, we're putting healthy fish in, and making sure that everybody else is doing the same, because at the end of the day, we want everybody to enjoy the sport and to make sure that there's healthy fish, whether we're putting them in or if it's a cooperative nursery or a private fishing club, etc.
And Bob, if I might just, an analogy I've used a lot in this whole process, everybody at the Federation is familiar with chronic wasting disease, right? And, deer are a live animal agriculture product. Avian influenza, chicken, that's a live animal agriculture product. Swine. Up until now, there was literally no paper trail or disease requirements to make sure that on the fish side, with that, again, that live animal agriculture product, that we weren't moving the wrong thing or diseased fish around. And when we talked to our counterparts in other states, they were astounded that we had nothing like that in Pennsylvania. So really, I think if you keep that in mind, just like we don't want CWD or avian influenza spread, you want that paper trail, make sure that you're stopping it. Same deal with the fish. So thanks, Bob, for just letting me interject that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of piggybacking off, what Tim was saying, really a lot of the Western US states, as well as New York, they have some sort of watercraft inspection requirement, and they vary, by state as to what's required, but really, the intent is to make sure that you're not spreading aquatic vegetation that could be invasive from one water body to another, or water that may contain different prohibited species or pathogens. So that's part of the new chapter as well. We wanted to put something in place, again, just to reduce the risk of those things being spread further within Commonwealth waters. And again, we do have an example where this the lack of watercraft inspection requirements did result in, or likely I should say, resulted in something being introduced into a new water body. And then it really, at the end, it's improving fisheries management, making sure that, from the food chain perspective, that, fish are being put in at the correct times. I know that our agency is active in that, especially when we're, you know, refilling a reservoir after a dam rehabilitation project, and there's a certain method and there's a certain way of certain species going in at certain times to really rebuild the fishery. So again, there's a number of reasons, but really it boils down to AIS and having healthy fish for everybody within the Commonwealth. So as I mentioned, there's some examples here. What I refer to or alluded to with the watercraft inspection requirement example, it's zebra mussels. They were discovered in Raystown Lake, which is over in Huntington County, back in 2021, likely from a contaminated boat. And a lot of those times, those mussels will find anywhere to attach onto a boat. Same thing with white perch, but they really compete with other native species for habitat within the lake. So that's just one example where you have two species that could cause issues within one water body. Another example is flathead catfish that are within the Susquehanna and Delaware River basins. A lot of times they're feeding on American shad. In certain areas where those shad are trying to migrate and get whether it's natural fish passage or different gates. So that's an example where you do have predation from an invasive species on a native species, and I'm sure some people know that's one of the reasons why the agency was created in the first place, was to help restore American shad. Gill lice and trout, that's a parasite that attaches to the gills of trout. And, Koja and Dave can go into more detail on some of the science and behind that. But, that's an example where, you do have a pathogen that has gotten into wild trout. And, certainly we've been successful in mitigating that, but that's just an example where you may have a pathogen that's gotten in that we're trying to prevent from further spreading. We've had instances of escapement from private ponds, or in some instances where folks might buy a pond starter kit and they actually contain invasive species that aren't listed on the label. I know for a fact our officers have been active in certain cases with Chinese mystery snails, for instance, that are in pond starter kits. So that's just another example where you do have invasive species being inadvertently being put in ponds, but then do escape when you do have a large storm event. And then lastly, this is the example I talked about a little bit earlier, rebuilding fish communities in the right way when you are refilling a reservoir or lake. So this is the new chapter, and it contains a lot of what was in chapters 71 and 73 with some new provisions. Again, the notice of stocking, which we'll go into further detail about, the watercraft inspection, fish health, requirements that Koja will talk about. But by and large, it's more efficient, it's cleaner, it provides a little more clarity for the different subchapters and how it's structured. But again, this is the new chapter 71A. We'll go into detail in a few slides on how we got to this point, but just for everybody's purposes, this is what the new chapter looks like, which again is effective on January 1st. So I mentioned timeline. We really, started this process, at least formally, back in early 2022, and we did have a proposed rule that was approved by our board in April of that year. Put it out for public comment, and quite honestly, we received a lot of public comment on this proposal, well over 1,000 comments, and we said, okay, let's see what the public has to say. What do folks like? What do they not like? And we'll see what we can do to work with people to make sure that, obviously it maintains the integrity of the proposal for the agency, but also works for the public at large too. So that's where we spent the latter half of 2022 at multiple commission meetings and committee meetings, giving updates, talking about next steps. We went back and shared drafts with different stakeholders on, feedback in relation to public comments, and ultimately the new chapter 71A was voted on favorably by our board this past July, again with an effective date of January 1 of 2024 for the chapter. Now, again, there's certain provisions that'll be after that, again, relating to fish health that Koja can go into more detail about. But this is just sort of the timeline of where we were and where we're at present day. And now we are up to the notice of stocking, so I will loop in or pass things over to Dave Nyhart, who is our chief of the Division of Fisheries Management. And Dave, again, just let me know when you want to move on to the next slide, and happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Bob, for that. So the next part of this presentation is going to cover the notice of stocking. As Bob mentioned, one of the major things that's included in 71A, really to target, better fisheries management, controlling AIS, is the notice of stocking. So what is the notice of stocking? Basically what it boils down to is no species can be introduced, whether that's stock, liberated, whatever, into waters of the Commonwealth without submitting a notice of stocking, with the exception if you're using bait on a hook. So, if you're using a fathead minnow, whatever the case may be for, angling purposes, and a notice of stocking isn't required. But anything outside of that, whether you're purchasing fish from private industry to stock in your farm pond, the water that, the creek that flows behind your camp, that would require a notice of stocking. If, you are going to a lake, catching 10 bluegills and then going back to your farm pond to stock them, that action would require a notice of stocking. Specific to 71A, waters of the Commonwealth, and this chapter does not include waters that are contained within the premises of a facility license under the Department of Ag. So, license under the Pennsylvania Aquaculture Development Law. So private industry is regulated by the Department of Ag. So what happens within the confines of that does not require notice of stocking. So if private industry has, multiple raceways in their facility, they don't need to notify the agency whenever they're moving fish from, one water source in their facility to the next. So in this chapter, waters of the Commonwealth does not pertain to facilities licensed by Department of Ag. A notice of stocking is also not required for ornamental ponds. So, garden ponds, koi ponds, a notice of stocking is not required to, stock fish in those ponds, as long as those ponds are not discharging into waters of the Commonwealth. Next slide, please. So it's important to remember that, a notice of stocking doesn't apply to everything. We currently have a introduction and propagation list that is updated yearly by the Bureau of Fisheries and provided to the Department of Ag. It's commonly referred to as our intro and prop list. And I'm not sure if folks have seen this or are familiar with it, but it's basically looking at the major watersheds within the Commonwealth and breaks down by watershed what species are permitted to be introduced or propagated within those watersheds. So if an individual is looking to stock a species in a particular watershed that's not on the intro and prop list, a notice of stocking can't be submitted to kind of circumvent other regulations we have. So, one example would be if an individual wants to stock flathead catfish anywhere in the Commonwealth, flathead catfish are not on our intro and prop list. So notice of stocking can't be submitted can't be submitted for the stocking of those species. Also, a notice of stocking does not allow individuals to stock other waters that are currently prohibited from stocking. And a couple of the major ones that we talk about, Class A waters, so 57.8A. So any stream section that's designated as Class A, stocking is prohibited without approval of the Board of Commissioners. So a notice of stocking can't be submitted to stock a Class A water. And additionally, in 71.8A, we have our designated waters, and this encompasses things like areas that are managed for catch and release, wilderness trout streams. So again, individuals cannot submit a notice of stocking to stock any of these waters that are already currently prohibited from stocking. Another thing worth pointing out, so a notice of stocking is what is used to liberate fish into waters of the Commonwealth. One thing that is carried over from Chapter 73 is a requirement to seek approval from the executive director to bring fish out or bring fish across state lines. This still holds true. So individuals looking to stock fish, bringing them in from Ohio, have to have approval from the commission to bring those fish across state lines. In order to stock those fish, a notice of stocking would be needed. So it's important to point that out, that there's two processes in place for individuals looking to bring fish across state lines for stocking into the Commonwealth. As Bob mentioned, this notice of stocking is going to become effective on January 1st of 2024. So just about a month and a half away is when this becomes effective. Next slide, please. So now we're going to get into the notice of stocking form. So what's going to be required for individuals filling out this form and submitting it to our agency? So in addition to the form, just like anything that we put out, with a lot of our other forms and applications we have out there, staff have developed a very detailed instructions to go along with this form, and really with the hopes of, allowing folks that are utilizing this form to have a full understanding of what's expected to complete the form. So in addition to the instructions, we're also going to have information on our website as well. We have a bunch of FAQs developed. We have dedicated staff that will be a resource for users to utilize as they're filling out this form. The form is pretty straightforward. It contains 5 sections. And really, this form, when we were sitting down looking at the best way to develop this form, we were thinking about other forms that we currently have out there that anglers would be used to using, and one of the things is our special activities permit. So a lot of this information on here kind of started with looking at our special activities permit. And we'll get into detail about each one of these sections, but as I mentioned, there's 5 sections, basically looking at applicant information, stocking category, stocking location, fish species, and then the last part is where are the fish coming from. Next slide, please. So a couple of things I want to point out before we start getting into the specific sections of the form is it's going to be a single page, it's user-friendly, and really, looking to get as much data and compliance as we have to make something that people are going to be willing to use. It's going to be user-friendly, and one way to do that is to keep it to a single page. Another thing worth highlighting, it's absolutely free. There is no cost to the user, whether you're mailing this in, submitting it through our online portal. The form is 100% free. Also want to point out that a notice of stocking is valid for each water body. So I guess if you have a stream section, we'll just say, Little Bear Run, and you want to stock Little Bear Run, you provide 1 notice of stocking per water body. Regardless of how many stocking events are going to occur within that water body, only 1 form is going to be needed. And these forms are valid for a calendar year. We'll get into specifics about stocking date range that we're looking for. But if you submit this form in February of 2024, the form will be valid for the entire calendar year. So December 31st of that year is whenever it would be valid through. Next slide, please. So now getting into the specific sections on the form, and you can see at the top of this, we have a resource count, the email. So folks that will be submitting these things electronically through email, this is the email account. So we have a dedicated staff in Harrisburg that all of these are going to be funneled through by sending them to this resource account. So we're looking for applicant information, basic stuff, who's doing the stocking, where are you located, just information that if we have to reach back out to you for whatever reason, we have sufficient information that allows us to make that contact. We're also looking, is this stocking occurring as part of an organization? Is it part of a hunting and fishing club? Is it part of a cooperative nursery? And if it is part of a cooperative nursery, we're looking for specifically, what's the co-op nursery they're coming from, the sponsor name, some just additional information so we can track our co-op stockings as well. The second part B, is a stocking category. We have it broken down into 3 categories: general stocking, fishing derbies and tournaments, and restoration project. In multiple categories can be selected for on each notice of stocking form. So if you are doing, say you're doing 5 or 6 stockings a year on the same water body, 4 of those stockings are just general stockings, but you happen to have a fishing tournament going on as well for one of those stockings, you can check both boxes. The one thing that I will point out is folks that are stocking fish as part of a fishing derby or tournament, so our special activities permits, our SAPs, commonly like you think of children's derby, those type of things. you have to continue to submit a special activities permit and a notice of stocking. A notice of stocking does not cover the special activities permit. So you can see at the bottom of the screen there in the bottom right-hand corner, we provide a link to the special activities permit as well. So it's being pointed out here, and then also starting December 1st, before the end of the year, folks that are requesting special activities permits, they'll be notified that, you know, if you're stocking fish as part of this event, you also are required to submit a notice of stocking. Next slide, please. So stocking location information, you can see at the very top here, we're looking is, you know, are you stocking a stream? Are you stocking an impoundment? Is the water currently open to public fishing or not? We're looking for the water body name, the county, the municipality as well. In addition to these general descriptors of the water body, we're also looking for folks to provide lat lawn coordinates as well. So a lot of people have smartphones, you know, with this information can be easily populated, but if folks that do not have that, we provide links to Google Maps as well. So a lot of folks are familiar with Google Maps, you know, scrolling in and zooming into the area that you're stocking, pulling those lat lawn coordinates is really going to help us be able to determine exactly where the stocking is occurring. If individuals are unable or unwilling to provide that information, you can see here a number 3, the location description. You know, we're looking for, if you can't provide a lat lawn and you're stocking Little Bear Creek, but you know the stocking is occurring at Bear Run Road, you know, provide some additional description to really help staff narrow down and focus in on where these stockings are occurring. So the more information you can provide, the better it is for staff to be able to determine where the stocking is actually going on. We're looking for the stocking area, depending on if you're stocking a river or a stream or an impoundment, you can choose to indicate whether it's miles, feet, or acres. We're also looking for a stocking range. As I mentioned before, these forms are valid for an entire year, but we're asking folks to kind of, you know, fine tune their stocking rate. So again, you know, helping us with our data collection. So an example I'll give is, you know, if you're stocking a water and you want to put, you know, your stocking on April 1st to June 1st, that gives us an idea when the stocking is occurring. However, if for some reason your stocking hasn't concluded during that time period and you decide you have to stock these fish on July 1st, you're not going to be in violation because, again, these forms are valid for an entire year. It's also worth pointing out here that this is where we're asking about the number of stocking events. So as I mentioned before, a notice of stocking can have multiple stocking events on the same water. So you don't need to submit multiple notice of stockings to stock the same water. This is where we give you the opportunity to say, I'm stocking this water from here to here, and I'm going to plan on stocking this water 5 times. So that's really the information that we're looking specific to where the stocking is occurring. Next slide, Bob. So here's where we get into what species are being stocked. And depending on the avenue of which you're submitting this form, this is an example of the PDF, the fillable PDF form. We have drop-down boxes where you can, basically this list is pulled from our introduction and prop list. So, you know, if you're stocking rainbow trout, like you click in here and type out rainbow trout and it populates for you. So we have a list of, I can't exactly sure how many species are on here, but it encompasses everything that's on our intro and prop list. So in addition to what species is being stocked, we're looking for the total, whether you provide the total number or the total pounds. A lot of folks, you know, if they may, depending on where they're getting from, they may be getting fish by pounds or by number. So one of the things really at the request of industry is to have that option. You know, don't stick us to just a number because a lot of times we're doing things by pounds. And we're also looking at the size range of the fish being stocked. And we have pre-populated fields in there that you can pick from as well. And the last party is just the producer and hatchery, you know, where the fish are coming from. So that's really the last part of this. Once all those fields are filled out is when you would actually sign the form and then submit it. So we'll get into some additional details about how these are going to be submitted on the next slide. So as far as form availability, we will have a dedicated part of our website, a notice of stocking part of our website that's going to house all this information, not only the forms, but the instructions and the FAQs and some contact information. and some additional information specific to the notice of stocking is going to be available on our website. We're also nearly completed with an online submission form or submission platform. So going to an online portal where you can do all this electronically and submit it without ever having to, hard copy or fill out the PDF form. So that's nearly completed. And the last way is we will have hard copies available at our headquarters and our regional office as well. So if you want to walk into our office and pick up one of these, we will have hard copies available. Very similar to how we have our special activities permits now, that those are available at our regional offices. As far as completion, there's really 3 ways that you can do it. We have a PDF form, a fillable PDF form that is going to be on our website. And basically it's the form that we just went through a few moments ago, where you fill out the information and you hit submit, and the email would be sent to that resource account. If folks choose to, you can still handwrite these out. As I mentioned, we will have hard copies and printable copies on our website. If you choose to fill it out via hand and send it in by the mail, that's absolutely fine as well. And we're also working on that online submission through our online platform. So those are the 3 options we have for completing the form. And as I mentioned, I guess I kind of jumped in to the submittal as well. They can either be mailed in, emailed in, or submitted through our online platform. Next slide, please. So in summary, really, and Bob covered a lot of this stuff as well as his intro, it really provides us the opportunity as an agency to have an idea of what's going on out there. Up until this point, there was no formal process in place to allow us to track the stockings that were occurring outside of our agency and our co-op. Really, looking at invasive species, this is one of the biggest things we can do to really curb the impacts of aquatic invasive species could be having or potentially having on our resources moving forward. We're going to use this data as it comes in, and really improving fisheries management is going to be key in this, and invasive species. I can't harp on that enough. And also with our cooperative nursery program, our cooperative nursery program, 150 plus co-ops stocking over 1 million fish a year. They currently have a process in place for reporting that information. So we feel that this notice of stocking is going to improve that and really eliminate some of the redundant paperwork that they're filling out. So this is something that our agency has been involved with, the 71A and the notice of stocking, for many, many years now. And it's something that, it is long overdue for the Fish and Boat Commission. And as Bob previously mentioned, there's 30 other states in the country that have something like this in place. And we're the only state in the Northeast up until this point that hasn't had a real formal way to track what's coming in and being stocked into the Commonwealth. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it over to Koji Yamashita, our Fish Health Unit Leader.
Thanks, Dave. And my name's Koji Yamashita. I'm the Fish Health Unit Leader for the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. And tonight I'm going to be giving a brief overview of the Fish and Boat Commission's Fish Health Inspection Protocol. So when it comes to the fish health requirements for stocking and importing fish, Chapter 71A primarily references the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission Fish Health Inspection Protocol. And it's some things that are important to keep in mind when you think about the Fish Health Inspection Protocols. First, that this is a separate document from Chapter 71A, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit, but if you go into Chapter 71A, you're not going to be able to find the Fish Health Inspection Protocol. It's going to be kept online on our website. The second thing to keep in mind is that the requirements in the Fish Health Inspection Protocol will not be effective for 2 years. And then we did this to allow industry time to catch up. And so, this is not going to be effective until January 1st, 2026. So I'm going to go over some stuff, and there's a lot more to it, but just wanted to emphasize that 2-year lag time on this. So the Fish Health Inspection Protocol is designed to provide protection to the Commonwealth's aquatic resources, and it does this by preventing the introduction of specific pathogens, and also helps to control the spread and prevalence of pathogens already present in Pennsylvania. And Bob already talked about the example of gill lice already being in Pennsylvania. We want to control the prevalence and the spread of that pathogen in Pennsylvania. And then if you're thinking about specific pathogens coming into the state, you can think of something like if someone wanted to import trout from California. Prior to this, there was nothing out there to say you can't import trout from California. And there are several different pathogens in California or in the Western United States that are specific to the Western United States that aren't found in Pennsylvania or on the East Coast. So we're trying to prevent those pathogens from coming into Pennsylvania and, in the region too, not just Pennsylvania. Fish and pathogens don't know the difference, state line, and our rivers cross state lines. So, it's not only for Pennsylvania, but it's for the whole region. And as I mentioned before, the protocol is separate from Chapter 71A. And the reason we did this was to allow for quick and easy updates. You can't predict the
You have
future.
4 new voice messages. You have 4 saved voice messages.
Let's see, Coach, if I can help you out here.
Sunday,
Yeah.
November 12th at 12.
Okay. So, as I was saying, it's separate from Chapter 71A, and that's to allow for easy updates. And we can't predict the future, and so if something all of a sudden shows up, let's say in Maryland, we need to be able to react very quickly and put something in place to prevent fish coming from Maryland, without being tested for that specific pathogen. We didn't have anything in place, and as Bob pointed out in his timeline earlier, it took a long time to get Chapter 71A put into code, and we need something that does that a little bit faster. So the idea of keeping the documents separate is that we can update that when needed, and that's not to say that somebody here can just do that. There is a checks and balances that are involved in that. And we are required through Chapter 71A to post any changes that we want to make in the Pennsylvania Bulletin for public comment. And we're also required to consult with the Department of Ag. So there's going to be a little bit of a lag, but it's not going to be as long as if we try to change Chapter 71A every time there was a fish health issue that we had to address. Along with that, both with Chapter 71A and with the fish health inspection protocol, the aquaculture industry was consulted throughout the development of both of those documents. Next slide, please. So as far as what's actually in the fish health inspection protocol, contains the fish health testing requirements for importing fish into the Commonwealth. Also, the fish health testing requirements for introducing or stocking fish into waters of the Commonwealth. It then lastly contains information on the acceptable testing methods and protocols. And the accepted testing methods and protocols, that's really for industry, so that they know when they have to send their fish to labs to be tested, that what protocols are acceptable. The next slide. And both for the NOS and also for the fish health requirements, it applies to all stockings. Whether the fish are coming from our state hatcheries run by the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, or Fish and Boat Commission cooperative nurseries, federal hatcheries. If there's a university out there that's raising fish and wants to stock them, this applies to everybody, not just the commercial hatcheries. And as Dave mentioned before, we have our introduction and propagation list, and so these requirements are only for fish that are on that list, only for fish that are allowed to be stocked into Pennsylvania waters. Example of this would be tilapia. There's a pretty large tilapia industry in Pennsylvania, but you're not allowed to stock tilapia into Pennsylvania. So there's some specific viruses that affect tilapia. We're not worried about that in this protocol because they're not going to be stocked. It's designed to provide protection on a variety of levels, from a specific large watershed to the entire state. We don't want everything to be a blanket requirement. And these requirements are dependent on the species being stocked and the stocking location. And because of this, many stockings will have no or minimal fish health requirements. So this might not, depending on what species you're stocking, where you're putting them, there might not be anything to worry about, or there won't be any fish health requirements. And it does not require that all facilities conduct fish health inspections. It's only if they're stocking fish or selling fish to be stocked. And you can think of an exemption for this would be, a commercial hatchery that's selling fish to the food market. Those fish aren't going into the waters of the Commonwealth, so this does not pertain to that hatchery. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, the protocol will become effective January 1st, 2026, and this was to allow time for industry to come into compliance. As far as the fish health requirements, as I mentioned before, they're dependent on the stocking or introduction location in the species. And some stockings will not require fish health certification. So Bob mentioned gill lice before, and in the fish health inspection protocol, one of the statewide requirements will be that all state or all brook trout and rainbow trout stocked into Commonwealth waters are going to be required to be certified gill lice free. Another requirement that's going to be in there is there will be some additional fish health requirements when stocking Great Lakes Basin. So this might be portions of Crawford area, Potter County. So if you're stocking those waters that flow into the Great Lakes, there may be some additional testing required to stock those fish. And then lastly, when it comes to responsibility or the enforcement, it's the responsibility of the person purchasing the fish to ensure the fish come from a facility with the proper certification and that certifying documents are present at the stocking event. So that concludes the overview of the fish health inspection protocol, and I'll turn it over to Bob to talk about some of the watercraft inspection requirements.
Thanks, Kojin. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, briefly on the watercraft inspection front, again, this will be effective on January 1st, 2024. And really, it's two main areas here. One is we don't want folks putting boats or watercraft into waters of the Commonwealth with aquatic vegetation or prohibited species. Again, think like a zebra mussel hanging off, because that's an easy way for those things to spread. So and it's the last bullet there. You can see just making sure that gear, watercraft, etc. are free of aquatic vegetation and prohibited species. The other part of this is when you are leaving a water that we're asking folks, and it'll be a requirement to drain your watercraft that's holding water. So whether it's drain plugs, your kayak, pull your plug on those. If it's a canoe, they'll make sure that the water's not sitting in the canoe, etc. Again, just to reduce the risk of spreading pathogens and aquatic invasive species throughout. And again, as I mentioned, for instance, New York State, especially up in the Adirondacks, they're already doing this. So again, we're actively working internally as well as with partner agencies to get signs up at accesses, as well as information we'll have on our website with, tips to clean your gear. And it'll also be present in our summary book that whether you're getting the boating handbook or purchasing your fishing license, annually. All of this information, whether it's the note of stocking, whether it's the watercraft inspection, it'll be in those summary books. So it's just another avenue for folks to have that information. And with that, I will stop sharing the screen, and we're just happy we have some time here for questions and comments. And Mike, if you want to MC, you can, but happy to answer what we can.
Well, Bob, just real quick, I think that you guys did a great presentation. I do have some questions that I could ask later, depending on folks that are on the call if they don't want to ask questions. Terry, I see some of our board that are on the call here, and I'm glad that is. Terry's there, and chat. Paul, go ahead. If you guys have questions, ask away.
Yeah, and Mike, this is Tim. One thing I if it was said, maybe I'm repeating it, but we know this is new for everybody. And really the first year, we've been doing meetings with the cooperative nurseries, and we've had a WCO typically there. Really going to be taking an educational approach to this, particularly on the notice of stocking. It is brand new. I hate to say, is Terry? Terry, can you hear us? Okay.
Hopefully he's just sleeping.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Hey, Paul, can you check on Terry? Can you call him?
Yeah, no joke. Could somebody give him a call? It's been a long day for me too. I get it. For all of us, but really, it is going to be an education first. You know, we know it's new. If there's something we could be doing better as we roll this out, please let us know. Honestly, if the form could be clearer, if there are elements of the online submission think we could be doing better, we want to get this right. So as we implement this for the first time ever, please let us know what we could be doing better. And Terry, glad you're with us here.
Terry, you scared us.
And Mike,
Terry,
also, if you and Mike,
Yeah.
also, if questions would come up afterwards, you know where to get us. We're at Federation. Happy to answer questions at an upcoming meeting, or even just schedule another session like this.
Yeah, Tim, I can't thank you enough for you guys doing this. As I was mentioning earlier, you come to all of our quarterly board meetings. I know you brought this to our attention early on. And so we had a chance as a result of that. Some of the folks that are on this call took it back to some of our clubs. We came up with some questions from them and passed it along, and you guys answered them. So we appreciate that. I guess my one general question would be, what are some of the items that maybe some of our partners across the state that you guys have heard from, either concerns or questions that they've raised that, you guys have either addressed or might be just looking to see how it works once it gets started?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start just because I've been to a number of your meetings and then turn over the others. One would be, is there going to be extra paperwork on cooperative nurseries? And the answer is no. That form that we have actually replaces the form. And Brian, can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's a common question that we got. How is this going to be even easier for the clubs that have cooperative nurseries affiliated with them?
Yeah, so for our co-ops, they normally would send us a tentative stocking schedule, and on that schedule, they would have to put each one of their stockings down. Whether they did, 5 stockings on the same stream or not, they had to put all 5 of those on there. The way this is working now is they just fill out one form for that one stream. So then it incorporates all of the stockings that they're going to do on that one stream. So it's going to be less writing for them. Also, we've been telling our co-ops that if they're going to use the PDF form, the easiest thing to do is to fill it out and to save it on their computer, fill out another one for each water and save all of them and send them in. And then in the following year, open that back up. And if they're gonna stock the same waters, the same places, just change the dates. And it's a lot easier than what they had been doing. So that's one of the big concerns we had. And we were hearing back from our co-ops, they just don't want to do a lot of extra paperwork. Well, here it's actually less. It's a little more work on the front end, just getting everything filled out. But then over time, it's going to be a lot easier for them.
Another, I think, big picture question, Mike, was, is this somehow an effort to get rid of stocking in Pennsylvania? On the contrary, not at all. I mean, we're making historic investments in our hatchery system. We're working a lot with the co-ops to make sure that we're investing in them. And I think, have a stronger relationship than ever with the commercial aquaculture industry in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is a great place to fish because we have both. We've got unbelievable wild fisheries, and then we have great stock fisheries. And we're talking a lot about trout, but you wouldn't have muskie fishing or walleye fishing in most of Pennsylvania without our hatchery system. And, this will apply to warm water species as well. Trout get all the talk, but, if you're going to be stocking bass in a pond, yeah, these would apply as well. Another question we get there is, well, why would you be requiring it there? It's because, that's the definition of waters of the Commonwealth. There's a stream that flows in and a stream that flows out. And we're, one high water event or one, not necessarily even hurricane. I mean, think about it. It's not uncommon now to get 6 inches of rain on a Wednesday night in the summertime, right? And next thing you know, that pond's blowing out and everything that's in there is going downstream. So just any notion that this is some effort, that's anti-stocking, couldn't be the case. We just want to make sure that there's, healthy hatchery fish and then healthy wild fish at the same time.
Hey, Tim, I'm going to ask one other question. I'm hoping I'm not taking everyone else's time here, but I know that there has to be a good faith effort on behalf of a property owner or someone that has, or that's doing a stocking to try to comply. What is built into the, and I apologize, I know I should know this question, but what's built in as far as intent or, does the commission have the ability to say, look, you filled out the form, you sent it in, but you didn't fill out or you didn't check this box?
Yeah. And I think maybe even in a bigger sense, I mean, if you really just don't know, you don't know, right? And so this is going to take a couple years of education here. And if the nice thing is we're going to get the forms back. And if we're noticing that things that, fields are missing, we'll be able to follow up with the applicant. But this is about data gathering and it's about healthy fish. This is not about gotcha. It's not a gotcha game. Having said that, if someone's, being a jerk about it and really flaunting what the requirement is, then we may take a different attitude. But really, it's about collecting the data. And if a form is filled out incorrectly, listen, we've all filled out forms incorrectly, especially the first time you do it. We'll just educate you how to fill it out right the next time.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. Hey, real quick, just going around the horn. Terry, you have any questions for the group?
No, apologize for falling asleep. Been a long day. We have one of our members is I've talked to him a couple times about this, and he's very obstinate about it. And you just kind of answered that question. Says you can't do this, and the Fish Commission, can't control everything, and goes on. I think it's something that needs doing, and I think this sounds like it's a step in the right direction. We're all going to benefit from it. They're just, like you say, there's going to be a learning curve there too. But.
Yeah, Terry, I'm glad you mentioned about all benefiting, and we even had an acknowledgement of that from the commercial industry. I mean, the last thing they want is diseased fish being put in upstream and then flowing into their operations. Similarly, Dave and Koja and Bob and I spent a lot of time with some of the private clubs in the Poconos, and there may be, a creek up there that has 6 different clubs that stock along that creek who are they're pretty much doing the right thing, right? They're doing the right thing already. Well, you don't want club number 3 right in the middle all of a sudden, putting in diseased fish or stocking something that shouldn't be there and then ruin it for everybody else. So it's about healthy flowing waters, and they're all interconnected. So it's ultimately going to benefit everybody.
Yep.
Hey, Terry, we know how hard you work, and we were just afraid that we were hoping something didn't happen to you. So, and Paul, thank you for helping. Hey, Paul, do you have any questions? Okay. Chet, I see you're on there from Southwestern Pennsylvania. Do you have any questions? I'm not trying to pick on you guys. I'm just trying to give you a chance here with these professionals on the call. Melody, I know you're on the call. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, Mike, but thanks for asking.
Thank you, Chet. Appreciate it. Any of the other guests that are on, you guys feel free to chime in here in the last 5 minutes.
Hey, Mike, and with seeing Mel's on the line, I did talk with Mike Parker, and we're actually for our next article for your publication going to submit an article about this, knowing that there'll be a lot of interest on this. We can't cast the net widely enough with the information. So I don't know, Mel, if you've gotten that already. If not, it'll be forthcoming from Mike Parker for you.
And Mike, if any
Thank-
questions do come in after the meeting, I can work directly with you to get those
Yep.
answers.
Thanks, Bob. Hey, and Tim, real quick, I know Mel's probably not able to get the mute off, but thank you for always helping to cooperate to get the message out through our newsletter. We appreciate it.
Sure. Yep.
Hey, so with that, we will submit some questions back to you if we get them from any of the folks that
Sure.
are on the call. Get off mute. Tim, to you and your team, Bob, we can't thank you guys enough for taking time out of your schedules after a long day to kind of educate us on this important program. So we're supportive and appreciate the effort in protecting the streams of the Commonwealth. We appreciate it.
Yep, and thank you. And I want to just take another opportunity to thank our team. This was a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work. All the Fish and Boat staff who were on this call, as well as many others. If we added up the amount of time that's been on it, I cannot think of a project that's taken more effort for the agency perhaps ever. So, and it's not over now, right? We have a lot of work to do. And if, as I said at the beginning, if there's something we could be doing better, please let us know.
Hey, and one last thing, Tim, and I know I've told you this before, and we mentioned this during our board meetings. The way that you and the Fish and Boat Commission handle things, I've been to your board meetings. You guys stop votes on issues when public comments come up and they make sense. And so the fact that you guys are willing to at least listen to comments and try to get things right, and even admitting now that this might be a work in progress, it's why people, I think, across the Commonwealth trust you, and we appreciate your efforts. So thank you.
Good. Well, thank you guys, and look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully soon.
Will do. Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, guys. Yep. Good night.
Yep, thanks, everyone.